people, this is going to be a good one. If you have a child, if you have a teenager, if you have a toddler, if you have a young man that smokes weed, if you have a whatever, you need to really chime in and tag some parents' name. Tag a parent's name, um, tag a grandparent's name. I'm going to be sharing some personal stories with you, and I'm also going to be sharing some things with you that I think is going to really enlighten you. We also have Lady King is going to come in briefly and give you some tips if you have a child that's not performing exactly as they think they should, um, or rebellious child. This is something for you. This is free information. We're going to say it, so let's get those numbers up and rolling, so we can really be a blessing. Going to be a blessing. So I want to talk about this. Um, recently we were dealing with the world is dealing with. I believe it's who is it? Cam Newton was at a football camp, and he was highly disrespected by another um, young camper, a young teenager. And so what took place was, you all make sure you all share this. Please share to get these numbers up. Parents need to hear this. We're talking to this generation. You really, really need to hear this. And we're going to replay it tonight. You need to tag your coworkers. You need to tag, if you have a son or a daughter or a grandchild you connected to it, you need to tag them. They may be straight, you need to tag them. I cannot urge you enough on to now. This is the urgency. So the young camper disrespected Cam, and a lot of people was focusing, oh, you don't do this, a future Hall of Famer. It had nothing to do, I like what J. Rose said, it had nothing to do with Cam's football ability. It had nothing to do with the young man's ability or him being a camper. What was the ultimate goal or the ultimate no or the ultimate unbelief was the fact that this young man was a camper and he was a young man disrespecting an older man, period. We're talking about the spirit of rebellion. So I'm going to tell you my life story, some of it. I'm going to deal with the spirit of rebellion in this generation. And then we're dealing with what we call, even in the streets, we see rebellion going on with Nipsey Hussle, Merle being disrespected by some young bloods. Real gangbangers who are really banging in that life in the street, they're not disrespecting the dead nor the Merles, okay? But but we just in a generation that's like a lawless generation. It's a generation that doesn't care. A generation that just say, "I don't give a f." I mean, that's they just think that way. I'm gonna give you some tips about how to deal with a rebellious child. I'm going to give you some tips on ways to manage a rebellious child. I'm going to give you some tips on how to consider the child age. Let me say this: objectively, you know that your child is an independent person, and with thoughts and feelings that might not always be lockstep with your own. But when their feelings emerge as rebellious behavior, it can be hard to learn how not to just manage, but help them to work through it. Especially when, as a parent, it came easy to push or get away over theirs, or try these tips. What are we going to give to you today to kind of be a blessing to you? Now, we need to really get, I know some people, there need to be a lot more people on, but I'm going to share this because a lot of people, I do understand people support us privately, and some people talk about you so much they can't support you publicly. So that supports privately. But I'm not going to focus on I want to focus on this. And I'm going to bring a special guest on the Straight Talk, and we're going to talk and bring her in here, Pastor Kenya.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
All right. Glad to have you here.
It's good to be here.
I'm Kenya, and I know you had to do your head, and I put a hat on so you because you didn't want to wear a hat, but it looks good. So we're dealing with. I know you're not into the more culture, hip hop and gangland culture, but coming from the west side of Chicago, you should have been. But we see Nipsey Hussle, Merle's been disrespected, And regardless if it's the gang life, the social life, the spiritual life, we find out the spirit of rebellion is throughout the land. The Bible says the sins of the father visit the third and fourth generation. And now we're just seeing rebellion coming from a generation that we never experienced it before. I'm gonna talk about after you because I know you have something to do. I wanted to get your expertise on this because I know you have a master's degree. You study childhood education, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, you qualify. I want to bring you on as it relates to the rebellious child in the classroom, the defiant child, the child what we would call not just the class clown, but just angry. Is it bigger than the classroom? Most of the anger, is it coming from the home brought into the classroom? Or what, as your expertise, where do you see this rebellion coming from?
So good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Bishop May, for having me on your show today. It's such an honor and a privilege, although, next time I'll spruce up a little bit. Needless to say, we're talking about defiance in the home and in the classroom. And so what was your question one more time?
When you see the rebellion, you taught kindergarten, I thought you taught first, second, third, fifth, whatever. How do you manage that? How do you deal with that as a teacher? I mean, what are some things you share with parents today?
So of course, there are strategies and tools that you can use with the rebellious child, but you have to, and that's with any student, whether it's a child that's rebellious or not, the first 2 to 4 weeks of the year, you're trying to figure out the child. Are they defiant when you give a directive order? Do they take orders from ladies? Do you need to use a more aggressive approach? Do you need to use a passive aggressive tone? You have to take that time to figure out how the student responds to your directive. And with that being said, and then you can move from there. There's strategies such as timeout or a reward. I'll take a particular student. If I know a student is not good with giving a directive tone and that they're going to just go the opposite just because that's what they're used to doing, I know they like rewards. I'll use that as my token. So we're going to establish some rules and some expectations. And if you don't follow these rules, then you won't be allowed to, go here or do this or be a part of the group when we're doing, something fun or be a part of the treasure. So there are a lot of strategies and things that you can do as it relates to children that are defiant and being rebellious. But one of the things I want to send home, I know there are a lot of parents that are listening. The behavior that your child display in the classroom, typically, those are the same behaviors that are being displayed at home. And so I'd say to the parents, don't be hard on the teacher, but try to figure out and try to manage that behavior at home. Whether your child is reading, whether they are acting out, all of that relates to how they behave at home. If you don't have them reading at home and they're on their game most of the time, chances are they're going to be a struggling reader. Whatever their behavior is, for the most part at home, that's how it is at school. And so we can't look to the teacher to do this one-all, be-all correcting your child when you don't have any control over them. So there's only so much we can do in the educational position.
So as a teacher, it's highly important to know your child. We know you're a teacher. I know Dr. Three, Sister Candace, Damon. We had a lot of teachers, educators that come through our school. How important is for the educators to know the rules of the classroom management versus the environment that the child comes out of? For example, when I taught, I didn't think it. It was more than the classroom rooms. It was the teacher had to have the compassion for the students, because some of these students are born and living in dysfunction. Mm-hmm. And the only functional time period they have is when they come and being in the structured class of Miss May. So how much is it it's really not a question, but is it the child's fault or is the parent's fault? And how do you educate a dysfunctional child?
Curriculum doesn't change based on their behavior. So whether they sit and get the curriculum, it's on them. And it's on their parent as well. The curriculum does not change. The pace of giving the curriculum does not change. So if they're acting out, we just got to find a way. Now, we can only, again, as educators, do so much in the classroom, because you don't have just one child, you have usually 25 to 30 students per class, most teachers, if it's not a private school. And so you can't just use all of your energy. Yes, we want to be compassionate, sympathetic. We want to understand the child in its totality. Again, understanding how to reprimand or instruct the child. And that goes for instruction as well. But you can't spend your whole focus on just a behavior child. So as empathetic and sympathetic as I may be to that child's dysfunctional behavior, I can only spend so much time. Teachers can only spend so much time dealing with that.
Wow. So do you move the kid on, or do you deal with the parent, or do you deal with the situation, or do you get them out of your class?
Well, I mean, if they're being disruptive to the other learners, of course you need to make sure that you remove them. But again, then teachers are faced with something else, because when you remove a behavior child out of your room, you are frowned upon as an educator. You are expected to know your child and know how to deal with them and their behaviors. So you just got to make it work. But again, knowing what you can do, if you know they're not reading, or if you know they like gaming, maybe give them some instruction or give them some gaming time, or, I'll give you 5 minutes on the computer extra time. And it's a little different now because they're not necessarily in the class. Well, they haven't been in the classroom, and things are a little different with the pandemic. But there's only so much you can do as an educator. It's only so much you can do. And you don't necessarily have the right to say if they go on or not. If they do the work, they move forward. If they don't, they stay back. That's just kind of simple.
So I got some questions there, and I'm not going to let you go. You got to let me know when your time is. If I know your time is, you got something to do there. But I wanted to say this: we need to consider, as just accurate? We need to consider the child's age, because dealing with a rebellious child can be difficult. But we need to adjust depending on how we approach the child. While we can have a heart-to-heart, a candid, like Armani. We had our second child. He doesn't. I don't think Armani ever get a whooping.
He said that he did. I don't recall.
I don't remember Armani getting a whooping. I don't remember. We know Amir got a whooping, but that don't mean. And a lot of things we did with Amir was learn behavior. For every child, it does not take a whooping. So how important is it for the teachers, the parents, the pastors, the community involved? How important is it for us to have a conversation with the toddler, the preschool, or the elementary age child, or the young adult? How important is our approach? How important is our approach with a defiant child? Because we had children that would get dysfunctional. We had children that made mistakes. We had grandchildren. That's not the most safe environment that I thought in the early age, but now it's better. How important is our approach? Because some kids, especially in our culture, get your dumb ASS over here. And how important is our approach?
So our approach is very important. And again, it goes back to understanding the child. If they are if they like rewards, then you don't need to you don't need to be as stern with them. All you need to do is wiggle a little some Takis or some candy in front of them, or put it to the side. So your approach is very necessary, but you want to make sure that you stand firm. It doesn't have to be yelling. It doesn't have to, but you want to be firm, and you don't want to waver back and forth, because a kid is very manipulative, or they can be very manipulative, and they understand when you're going back for, oh, today you said I can do it, now tomorrow you saying I can't, so you have to stick firm to what those rules, the expectations are. And sometimes you have to be a little bit more firmer than others, depending on the child. I'll give an example. I had a student, she was a Caucasian girl in an inner city school. And so she was the only Caucasian girl in the classroom, but she had come from an area, very bright girl, but she had come from a school, you can tell she had some, some anger issues or whatever. And her response is always to throw a tantrum, throw stuff across the classroom, and, just acting out. And so I started, I laid the expectations down the first, her first few weeks in school. I had a talk with her and mom. I walked her out, this is what happened. This is what I need to see happening. Right now I'm having a verbal conversation, because, there are things that we do, like write the student up, so on and so forth. But I try to make that my last resort. And so I remember one day she got into it with one of the little girls, and she did what she knew what to do. She had a tantrum, and she kicked the chair or the desk or something. And so I just kind of candidly walked over there, and I brushed up against the desk like, really? Is that how we're going to do this? And she was startled. She looked and was like, I said, no, that's not how we behave in this classroom. As it relates to that, I didn't really have many more of those occurrences in the classroom, and then I had a chance to have a talk with her mom. Like, she's a bright girl, and she started being on the honor roll, and, you can make a change, but you have to understand the child, but you cannot dummy down on your firmness.
That's good. And we need to understand, consider that your child's age, control your emotions. I was horrible at that at first, just thinking I could just violently just jack my son up. No, we need to learn to control our emotions. It can be hard to do since you have vested interest in curbing your child's rebellion life, spend time with them, always parenting to them. It can be very hard, but we have to control our emotions as African Americans, particularly because I had Caucasian friends. I had Caucasian friends that told their mother, "Oh, mom, shut up." If we said that, our blood pressure, we probably would, oh God, in our culture, that's almost like a death sentence, Pastor King. And you're saying some really critical things, and I hope you all that are listening, you like and share this, because so many times we want to say, come to church, go to prayer, but no, we need to start dealing with these issues that no one else to deal with. But getting emotionally triggered by your child's behavior sets a negative tone of interaction that you'll have, and makes it hard for either of you to get to the root of the cause. So if he's doing something and you respond in anger, and then every time he does something, you respond in anger, it's the same old cycle, and the cycle becomes dysfunctional. Not only with the child, but with you. Because they say, oh, I know what I was going, oh, my dad is going to get angry, I'm going to get hit, and I'm good. I mean, sometimes kids think that way. So it's important for us to control our emotions. We need to have a model, the correct way to express feelings such as unhappiness and frustration for your child. Be like, I am not pleased with your behavior. That upsets me. And instead of raging and kicking over things, and so I choke children. I've choked one child, and Takia said, "Mirror, they're turning blue." I didn't even care. But my point is, that was negative. That was wrong. But we're taught as slaves. We take on the master of the master, and we think we have to beat the heck out of our kids to try to get a point or try to get them to a place. We think we have to demonize them, cuss them out, and punk them and make them feel less than. And then when you say, you mumbling on your words, I'm going to knock you out. You better not say a word. So they grow up knowing not how to articulate and know how to voice their opinion when they're frustrated or when they made a mistake. And so here it is.
Let me say just one thing. So yes, we want to make sure that we are setting the tone for the classroom. We want to make sure that we are setting those expectations and those rules, having a candid conversation with the child, understanding what type of child we're dealing with and their behaviors. But we also want to make sure that once we do that, we're not going back and forth with the child. Once you set and say, this is what my expectations are and these are the consequences for it, there's no going back and forth.
Right.
Or even if the child say, well, I'm not going to do this, well, so, and you go like, you can't, that's childlike behavior. And you don't want to.
And I was horrible at that.
You don't want to go back and forth with the child because at the end of the day, you have the last say. So you are the adult in the classroom and you make the rules. It is what it is. My rules are you lose. During recess time, you have to walk during recess and reflect on your behavior and tell me why. We're not gonna talk about it. I don't care even if you don't have great handwriting. It's no wavering. It's no you're not going back. These are the rules.
Because children can discern, and children are very manipulative, and they start these little manipulative traits. So what they do, mama told me I couldn't do this, dad, and then I go do it, and then you're hurting them rather than helping them. Because the judge, once he sentences them, he's not going to change it. Once they give the grades, they're not going to change the grades. And once they get the final assessment, they're going to go to somebody. As parents, we have to be collectively come together because everybody know I'm the one to come to give them the early parole. Oh, just let them out, and they're going to be good. But no, every child is not the same, so you can't parent the same,
right?
And you cannot discipline the same. So I wanted to say this one study examined that adolescent behavioral kids who were raised by authoritative parents in the preschool versus those who were democratic and authoritative with their young kids. Researchers found that the children raised by democratic authoritative parents were more competent and adjust to their adolescence. Assuming that your child isn't pushing for freedom to do something dangerous, such as misusing drugs, giving them a bit of more freedom, might actually help to reduce their rebellious ways. So being isolated and don't want your child to breathe, don't let them go to parties, don't do this, is really causing them to rebel and resent. All right. So with smaller children, this can be as simple as letting them pick their outfit for the day or their next meal. With other older children, it can be conditional choice that ends on them following from the established boundaries. Things like getting to hang out with friends, increasing allowances, or having access to the family car are great motivators to encourage potentially rebellious children to the tow line. All right, so so that my point on that is don't be a dictator. I was a dictator. So we have one point: control your emotions. Don't be a dictator. The last one, I'm going to bring Pastor Kenya back in. Make boundaries clear. It is well known that the fact that children are often rebellious because they want to test their parents' boundaries to see how soft, how strong, how crazy, how their fear can go before facing consequences. Child psychologists said the first 5 years is real critical of a child's life. How important is that? If a child does not have a male alpha male figure on how to respect a man or fear within the first 5 years, that carries over into adulthood, childhood, or adolescenthood. And of course, not every child, we can't always say all, but according to statistics, child psychologists, the first 5 years is critical. And then some cultures in the African cultures, they don't name their children for the first 5 to 8 years, because they want to see what type of personality a child develops. But I want to tell every parent on here, me and Pastor King out here, we got successful kids. They graduated. Even our daughters, they're successful in what they're doing. They contribute to society and life. Everyone has mistakes. But we're not perfect parents. We didn't know how to parent. We were young. I bought me and Michael Jordan's every week. I bought him everything he did. And he still ended up smoking weed and smoking blacks and hustling and doing all this kind of stuff. See, because we think we can control the narrative with our child, we can't. If I ever learned anything about parenting is to tell my parent, teach my children when to say no, when to walk away, and know when to judge his environment. Because there is no perfect parenting. Now, there's some horrible parents, but there's no perfect parent. I don't care who you are. If your child didn't get pregnant or get caught, it's because they didn't get caught a cheat. You can't demonize and hold yourself in a prison, all right, to even make yourself think I can't reach out for third-party resources because I feel I have been a failure. You are not a failure if you need third-party resources, grandparents, child psychologists, possible medications. Okay, these are all kind of things that other cultures and their family is offering their child. So just in case they go cuckoo when they're 40, they have a record on behind, and they don't go to prison like us because they have a record. So I want you to understand that. I want to denounce that. And when we correct you, even as our spiritual children, we're not correcting you because we demonize the child. We share this out of the love. So I also believe this. Lady May's giving you the education piece. I'm going to give you another spiritual piece in a minute. I'm going to ask her one more question, have her talk, because she's an expert. There's no need of me talking. The expert is on how to deal with child. I just think go jack him up. And she's like, no, he's got to sit there. He's got to learn. I'm like, no, let's deal with it. No, he's got to learn. He's used to that. So in my notes, Lady May said something that was very important. Stick to the rules. And I'm a horrible parent at that. I'm a horrible pastor at that. I'm horrible. I'm just horrible. My staff will tell you, I'll change up the rules because somebody cried in a minute. But you got to stick to the rules. You got to stick to the rules. So, Lady May, I'm going to ask you something else as we educate. I know you beat your face and all that, but you're good. How important, what advice do you have for step parents? Now, step parents are some of the greatest. Man, God has really equipped us. We can talk about child adolescence. We can talk about step parenting. I mean, we can talk about a lot of dynamics in the family structure. How important is it for you as a stepmom to realize no matter how much Tia and Precious love you, no matter how much the relationship is wonderful. I think Tia loves her mom and all that, and Precious loves her mom. But how important is it for you to be comfortable within yourself to say, yes, I'm help feeding this child. Yes, I help raise them, but this is not my child. I'm going to give space for this child to love on them, but I'm going to give space for them to discover who they are and who their parents are. How important is that? Because I think sometimes the step parent, we love them like their own, but we have to realize they're not ours. And the reason I say that because each child, no matter what you give them, no matter what you say, each child is going to want that experience with their own biological parent. Touch on that, please.
I totally agree with you, Bishop, as it relates to step parents. And we don't have the particular answer, the final answer. We can only share our experiences. But I'd say to the step parents, for one, be confident in who you are. know who you are, but understand your RAM, understand your place. You may, again, as Bishop stated, you may be doing insurance, paying for insurance. You may be disciplining the home. You may be setting structures and going to the games and doing all those different things, but you are still in addition to who they already have, whether they're there or not. So you have to know your place. And then another thing is we got to remember that just because you have the answer doesn't necessarily mean that they want it or even that they're listening to it for it. Just because I'll say, you need to do this, this, and this. If I don't have their listening ear, I'm just talking. And it may be great advice, but you have to make sure first you got to win the heart of the child. You have to make sure you spend quality time with them, but you have to make sure that they want or that they are receiving, not that they want it, but that they are receiving.
I need to take out of you. Now you sound good. You're wonderfully great. You sound excellent. You did this is my life, so you can be very transparent. How the heck did you find wisdom for Tia to love you and Precious the way they do? They love you like yo. Now let's deal with it because everybody is.
Bishop, that's how I dealt with it.
I'm just saying you wise. I'm gonna say you wise, and I'm gonna give you kudos.
And this is what I'm saying. I understood my place.
Did you build that bridge and that relationship? You had to be wise because you could have said the hell with me and Tia, and then with Precious after this, you really could have said I'm done with all you crazy folks.
I mean this when I say it. I had to understand my place. They didn't need another mother, although I felt like I was an additional parent. But they didn't necessarily need me, nor did they want me. They didn't ask for me to be their stepmom. It just happened to be that way. So you have to understand who you are. And again, what I was always saying, and we never mistreated the kids. When I went to get my hair done, I got Tia's hair done. When I did for Amir and Armani, I did for Tia. And regardless of what you do, you have to be received by them. It is a choice for them to receive what you're saying, what you're doing, because if not, you're just hitting a brick wall. And so I waited for the opportunity to make sure, okay, do you want to hear my conversation? Do you want to hear my opinion? If not, I'm not giving it. Go talk to your dad. I'm not just forcing it because I paid a bill or I got your hair done or your nails done. That's not the way it works. I understood that I am the third parent, not the first. And so when you know who you are, know what you bring to the table, you still have to respect that you are, who you are. And they may not want to receive from you. And when you do that, you build the relationship. I understood. Again, it's just like in the classroom, you got to take that time to understand what the child like. I knew that if I said to Tia, you better do this, she may, for the most part, do it. For the most part with me, because I built the rapport with her. But I was not always giving her directives because she doesn't take directives very well. So I had a conversation with her. So what are you feeling? What made you feel that way? Why are you feeling that way? What can we do to make it better? Okay, so let's talk. How are we going to talk to your dad about this? I built a relationship with her by having a conversation because I knew she was not the type to take directives and that direct aggressive approach.
So you're saying my aggressive approach doesn't work and it sometimes hurt? Because I believe that if you're fitting the bills, and I'm paying the bills, you respect the house and its rules. So you're saying that's not necessarily true.
Well, let me say this. Children, particularly children, they don't care who's paying the bills. They're not paying. For the most part, they don't care if the bills are getting paid or not. They have no clue about bills for the most part. So because you pay a bill or you contribute to their wellness or you contribute to what they're doing and how they're getting along, they could care less. So again, it goes back to building relationship, understanding the child, and then trying to connect with the child. So with Armani, I can say, you better, of course, after some time, I can say to Tia, you better get, but you have to understand the child. Now Amir is an experienced child. He has to put his hands on it. Whatever it is that he's learning, he's got to touch it, feel it, taste it, smell it, hear it, go through the heart. That's him. Armani, for the most part, I can say, you go up that road. I told you Amir went down that same road and I told him not to go. He may listen sometimes. With Tia, I'm taking a totally different approach. Okay, this is the road you should be going down. Now take whichever road you want. Talk to your mom and your dad, but this is the road that's probably the best road for you. I'm just giving you my 2 cents.
Let me say that this is very intriguing. I hope can you spend a little more time with us? I'll pay you, I guess. But I'll pay you for your time. So this is because you're helping me. You're helping me because I thought it was one way of parenting, and that's not always. Or being the alpha male, the head, and I get the belt and beat you behind. I run things up here. It does not always work, and sometimes it even creates the rebellion in the child. But you said something it's very important. You have to learn to build relationship. You have to know your place, and you earn their love. And now you and Tia, it ain't people don't even know y'all. I mean, it is what it is. Y'all know where y'all stand and where we stand, and it's just a wonderful thing. God blended us and just put us all on and made us one. So this is what I want to talk. I want to say this, that how important it is for your child. Okay, wait. Should as a parent, should you allow your child to discover the truth? Now, you just said something so important I never thought about. I'm looking at, you gonna do this? I'm paying the bills here. You gonna do this? You want my car? I pay that car note.
And you used to always say, "Go and turn on the light. Flick that switch." They're like, "Okay."
Right. I used to tell them, flick that switch. Who turned
turn
the
water on?
Turn
They
that,
turn the water
right.
on. They
I
don't
turn the water and turn on. Then I would go say, open that refrigerator. Who put that food in there? Right. It was all about me. That's just pride. That's I, right? And they were like, I don't care about that. So I was thinking as an adult, but I never had the ability to be transparent to come as a child. So how important, now my father, I love my daddy, wore gaiters every day, no socks. I mean, y'all tag Mother Simpson name in. That means a smooth cat, rode Cadillacs, but my grandfather never had wanted me have no dealings with that. And so I wanted to put myself in this story because the first critical 5 years of my life, this my picture I put on my page triggered it. I lived with my grandparents. I thought I had two mamas. Okay, I moved out at about the age of 5 or 6, 4, and I went to move with my stepfather. I rebelled against my stepfather. I was from the age of 5 to 7. I was going crazy, stealing and running away, fighting teachers, sitting there just going mad. All rebellion, because my life was being controlled, and I heard it. And I used to hear my family, the Cunninghams, blessed. They used to dog my other family out. All right. I used to hear all that kind of stuff. I used to hear the negative words about my father, but I am my father's child. I still love my father. My grandfather thought he was protecting me, but he was really hurting me. Okay. So I wanted to know, to the parents out there, what can you say to some mothers, and what wisdom can you share about? Because you said something very important again. You said the child doesn't care about the bill or the safety of the environment. It used to break my heart. You knew it when I used to have Tia go back. I had a plush house, the cars, we had everything, right? But Tia somehow would want to go back to the situation that I thought was dysfunctional. For me, it was dysfunctional. All right? I thought, but still, regardless of the way I felt, she still wanted to go back, even though they loved her, etc. But she still wanted to go back. So I couldn't buy her love. So how important is that for me have to let go and just do my part, all right, as a parent, but let your child develop and walk into discovering who their parent really are. Now she appreciates me now. She appreciates me well now. But when she was younger, she didn't understand what I'm doing is really trying to protect you. But because you think I'm trying to hurt you, now rebellion walks in, and then you start lashing out, wanting the attention of that parent that's not there. So tap on that, please.
I mean, it's not really much to say about that, Bishop. You summed it up for the most part. You just have to let the child be. You just have to let the child be the child, and it is very natural, and it's a very natural thing for a child to want to be with their parent, regardless of what their environments are like, and regardless of what we feel like we're giving them, because for the most part, you can't buy them. All you can do is love them. You can't have control of everything. It is what it is.
Okay, some situations that we pastor, that we look over, we got people from Dubai to Africa. We have a large group of spiritual children, grandchildren. Do we tell a parent? What does a parent do? Because now we had some of the people that we parent, some of the children that we produced babies with. Some of us was back then in our days, we was drinking, smoking. We are not even the same person. Now that we have coming to a maturation, the full maturity, now we got a parent with a person that we like, he's not even on my level in life. Why would I allow my child to go to his house and live with him spend a night with him. Do we still do that even though
Absolutely, because it's about building a relationship. You just talked about it with your father. Although your grandparents, your mom, your stepdad didn't feel like that was the best environment for you or that was the best place for you with your real dad, you still long to have a relationship with your dad. And that's what it's about. Not everyone desires to have that, but for those children that do, I don't think that you should hold them from that just based on your personal opinions, your personal endeavors, your personal way of doing things. No, I think that's a disadvantage to the child. They should be able to make that decision, at least to get to know them for who they are.
But let me say this, we almost do. But when I tell you rebellion, I was crazy. They thought I was crazy. I wasn't crazy. I just was rebellion because I was living with my grandparents and I'm living here. And then Ashia was born. When Ashia came at 7, I just went nuts. I don't know what it was. I just went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But my mother always loved me. My grandmother always loved me. And I couldn't stand for women to tell me nothing. I couldn't stand for, even my women teachers, I had problems with. I could not stand for the women to tell me that. So as I want to say this,
because we are spiritual beings, we believe that everything is spiritual. And we know that.
We do know that. But I'm going to say this, but there came a time in my life where a woman could not mold me, hold me, talk to me. It took a man. You got to know, I don't care how much you can stand that boy, stand his father. So when it relates to men, I can speak for men, that a child must, and if you're a young man, he must, if the father's willing, have a relationship with that father. He has to build some way. You have to find a way, if you don't do nothing but drop his clothes off, put him in the house and say, you got him for the week. You got him. Because there were some times that a woman couldn't tell me nothing. And I just needed a man figure.
Let me say this, Bishop. Now, that may have been the case for you because you needed a man figure because of your rebellious spirit.
That's what I'm speaking about me.
But that may not always be the case with all boys. Although they need their father, the environments may not be the best for them to be dropped off for a weekend. Build a relationship, talking on the phone, whatever they have to do, but it may not always be feasible. And then you may have a child that's not like you. They may not be rebellious. They may, be okay. I didn't realize that my boys was pulling the wool over my eyes for a long time. He's like, those boys. And I'm like, no. So I do.
No. Not pulling the wolves. Is continue to pull the wolves.
No, it's past tense. No, but I would say, I agree that boys should be fathered, but that's not always the case. With that being said, it does not necessarily mean that they have to conform to whatever the world has to offer. They don't have to be rebellious.
Okay, so what are you saying then? We have, I see Sharnella McCray is on here. Maybe she can give us some pointers because she's the line of work she does. So what do you do when the environment is not conducive for your child to be? Not really. You don't want to produce the child. The environment just didn't happen when you after you had a child. The environment was dysfunctional before you got pregnant. So first of all, was there got to be a self accountability within yourself? Because now you want to go same righteous when after you done produced the baby. Well, you knew how my environment was when you slept with me. So what do you do? So you're saying because the parents' house, it may be the dope house, it may be a house unclean. So what are you saying? Don't let the child spend no time over there?
No.
What do they do?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you feel like the child is being put in harm's way or their safety is a problem, then yes, that's when you want to stop it. Or if you feel like, if the man is a molester or if he's a pedophile or whatever, then no, you don't want to put your child in a particular environment like that. But as far as just being in an environment that you probably was kicking it in, I mean, it is what it is. Again, your child should be afforded the opportunity to build a relationship with their parents.
All right. So what do you have to say to parents, women, because oftentimes women want to control the narrative when their father can see. Let me just say, I don't believe in nothing about the courts. I hate the court system as it relates to a parent, either one letting them see their child. If I had a court order, I got to watch my words because I'm a leader and I got to make sure. Because I was going to say, if it was you trying to say I couldn't have my kids, I would come knock on the door and come get my kids. I think it's so crazy from a normal situation that you have to be told by a court system when you can see. I'm talking about for parents that are not deadbeats. I'm talking about parents, both male and female, that want to be a part of their child.
Let me stop you right there, Bishop. But you, of course, not everyone came out of a structured home, so they don't know that that is dysfunctional. They don't know that that's odd behavior, especially if you have the spirit of control or you want to control the scenario. It's like, I'm going to keep my child within my parameters so I can control what they are doing, seeing, wearing, smelling, whatever. And when they get to be with their father. So it's not necessarily, it's not always a good, they're not going to make the best choice. They're not going to make
So it's
a well-rounded choice because they are trying to control the narrative. That's all.
Oh, so it goes back to control, and then it does with, okay, we're going spiritual, it's witchcraft. They try to.
If you think about a young girl or a young man that's 20 something, they're not thinking about the spirit of witchcraft. They're like,
so you're telling me it's normal. You think that's okay? Let me just say. So what? You think it's normal for a mother, young mother, because she carried by her emotions, not to allow her to see her father?
I think that's absolutely insane. But again, me being the person I am, I want to figure out why. Okay, so why is this person acting the way? Oh, it's probably because they didn't have a father, or it's probably because they were not raised in a two-parent home, or it's probably because they didn't have the ability to go in it. They are not able to go in and out and, adjust to the different changes. But you have to figure out why. And again, it's just like having that child in the classroom, figuring out how they are and attacking it. You have to figure out who you're working with and come up with a way to work with them.
All right. We got 10 minutes and we got to get off because this is going to be shared. I want to say this. Oppositional defiant disorder is in a lot of our homes. While it's more like that child's behavior is due to a battle over independence and control, it is possible that oppositional defiant disorder, ODD, could be at play. Signs of ODD include frequent disagreements or arguments with adults, a negative, angry, or even aggressive attitude, aggressive and harsh interaction with peers, desire for revenge. Still, these actions can also be attributed or contributed to or up to other mental or physical health issues. So before you assume your child has ODD, you should confirm that there are no underlying issues. A chat with a child doctor or child psychologist. This is psychology. So everything is not a demon.
No.
Let's deal with the psychological aspect of it. Our children, oftentimes, we'll spend money to get them Jordans, we'll get them the latest gear. I was with Kennedy, she don't want nobody to call her Tucker Baby, I can't. I was with Tucker Baby the other day. She was telling me the latest rap and all that. She's well parented. But why don't we spend time on getting our children the necessary third-party help, as in a child psychologist? Yours truly, Bishop May, had a child psychologist at the age of 7 years old. I had a child psychologist. I was acting so crazy, he took me down to the jail to wanted to show me how jail was. And that didn't scare me. My mother, they evaluated me and they told me they wanted to put me on some medication. My grandfather went crazy because he says, you're not putting my grandson on medication. Again, he was protecting me. But I probably could have had taken some little medication to help mold my life, all right, into the person I would have really could be or should have been. So how important is it? I'm not going to say no, don't medicate your child. I'm not saying all that, but the way you feed your child, I just read a child psychologist, if a child doesn't get proper rest, he's defiant. The way they sleep, what they eat, the way they have balance diet, right? Huh?
What they witness?
What they witness, not being in church every day. You think that's raising your child right? Ooh, I raised my child right. They was at the church every time the church doors open. That's abuse. Every time the church doors open and your child is there, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a good parent or they're a good child. They're going to do what that young man did. I'm tired of this church. So, and that's what we think, open the door, sit your behind down, be in church. That ain't always good. Okay? And so we have to understand it is a spiritual thing. So now deal with the psychological piece. We got, I got to stay under 51 minutes. We got 44 minutes. Deal with the psychological piece, and this is good. And maybe we'll get a parent forum to talk to these parents. You all share it. This should be thousands. Y'all like foolishness on social media. This is valuable. This is good. This is the help to take it and apply it to your life. But I'm coming back because I feel led by the Holy Spirit. You're not the reason your kid is dealing with that dysfunction right now. You may be part of the reason, but you can't take on that blame by yourself. God's going to free you. Go ahead in Jesus' name.
And
Deal
so
with that psychological piece.
I would just like to say that I would recommend, and you understand your child from, when they're 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. It is important that you get them evaluated. And not necessarily first of all, you evaluate the behavior and see, is it something that you could manage? And if not, third-party resources are great.
Okay, stop, please. I gotta ask you. Because I think you're a real assassin, Lady May. You'll cut somebody, they don't realize they're bleeding. I got the knife and tell you, I'm being ready to cut you, and I cut you, and then you bleed. But you did a real. But how important is this to not be defensive when it pertains to your child? Because the first thing we do, and I am going to confess, once you say something about my child, you could be saying, "Hey, there's a snake right there getting ready to bite your old bony child." I said, "Bony child? Who are you talking about? Your child?" I go real defensive, not hearing they're saying a snake is going to eat over my child. So how important is it to recognize I'm being defensive and I can't even hear what someone is saying about my child? Because you say one thing, people just get offended. Oh, you can't tell my child now. How dare you say that about my child? What? When we come from our village, cousins, aunties, everybody say something about your child. You get whooped by cousins, aunties, everybody. That day is out. And now we're in a day that the children are so far gone and disrespectful. It's just crazy. But it goes back to parenting, because this generation is ridiculous and beyond disrespect. Even in the gangland, you see the mural on Mr. Nipsey Hussle. You see people getting cussed out, gunned down, shot down. But it takes a village to raise a child. But if you put that out there, that can't nobody tell my child nothing but me, and because you're going to go off or you'll cuss them out, your child is going to walk into a self-destructive behavior. Mm-hmm. All right? We need everybody to raise a child. But I do agree. Now, if you don't like me and you don't like my child, you ain't going to be correcting me. Now, I don't want people that don't like me correcting my child. But I'm talking about on normal situations. And we deal with the psychological part. The last part is the spiritual part. It's found in 2 Samuel, the 15th chapter, the first verse. Rebellion came in David's house because of sin. Mm-hmm. Let's deal with it. We don't like to deal with it, but we got to talk about it. First of all, if I'm not married, I have to acknowledge this child has no business being here. This child was produced from the fruit of sin. Ooh-wee. So now, I know you don't like this, and I'm getting this spiritual aspect, but we got to deal with it. All of them but one. We did. I hate that I'm gonna say this because it's gonna cost me. The money gonna, you know how mine is. We had one child that came the way and the will of the Lord. The Lord blessed our family. The Lord blessed my children. But we gotta go to it, because the sins of the father visited the third and fourth generation. So we have to acknowledge our sin. We have to repent, because he's faithful and just to forgive us for all of our sins. And because we glamorize struggle, we glamorize having children outside of marriage. That used 30 years ago, you'll be demonized. But now, 30 years later, 2021, we have reveal parties, and the preacher and everybody is there. So the time and the culture has changed. Mm-hmm. But we need to go back to reverencing God, to understand the children are the heritage of the Lord, the fruit of the womb is his reward. And we have to go back to being in the will of God. But this is spiritual. And I'm going to say this. A lot of what we went through is because of our own personal sins. And those sins go down to our children, and they cause generational curses. So we have to first acknowledge our sin, denounce our sin, and we have to break that cycle and break that curse. But the curse will never be broken if we never acknowledged it. David sinned with Bathsheba. David sinned with Bathsheba, but he had Uriah killed, and rebellion came in his house, according to 2 Samuel 15 chapter 1 through 20 and 22. Rebellion came in his house with his most beloved child, his most beautiful child, named Absalom. The question I would have to ask you, Lady May, do you think we're producing Absaloms in this generation, where rebellion has hit our home because we didn't do it God's way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to get to the root of why. Why did David behave like that? He didn't just become an adult behaving that way, being rebellious. That started way back when he was a child. And so again, we have to deal with our children's behaviors. We have to deal with our own dysfunctions and how we are manifesting or creating, adding to their negative behavior.
Now, maybe I gotta say this. I gotta mess with you. I gotta put with you. This is my Kojic background versus your Baptist background.
Okay.
Yes, he acted up, but David's family began to produce a dysfunctional behavior. First of all,
that's what I'm saying.
As a child,
he was rejected.
He made a difference, and he had rejection.
Absolutely, by his stepfather.
Right. So the question is,
by his father.
By his father, not stepfather. We're dealing with Joseph as the father, stepfather, the father. See, that's if you would have went to Sunday school in the Kojic church.
I went to Sunday school.
no, by his own father did not even consider or invite him. How much?
So they manufactured that behavior, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. So how important it is for us to realize and recognize a lot of what our children are displaying is because of us. Some people have no business having children. I know you're not gonna say it, but I'm gonna say it. I can't take it. You dysfunction, your mama was dysfunction, this dysfunction is just dysfunction all the way. And then I'm not talking about our church, but a period. Then we come to church and then we're supposed to pastor this dysfunction.
But Bishop, we can't stop at you shouldn't have did this, you could have did this, you would have did it. You can't, being that this has happened, what are we going to do? We have to take advantage of third-party resources, therapy, spirituality, getting to the source of it, breaking generational curses, medication, conversations. We have to use those resources that we have, because we can go all day and say, why did they do this? Why are you acting like this? Or, you should have did this. You shouldn't have this kid. You should have waited till you got married. We can shoulda, coulda, woulda all day. But what are we going to do to change the narrative?
So would you, okay, I heard you, I'm applying your rules to you. So I'm applying to the pastoralship. How much grace do we offer dysfunctional parents in the classroom and in the church? Because to go back to what you and Dr. Three were saying, y'all were piggybacking on each other, you have to uphold the rules. And some people think rules, dysfunctional people, what I discovered, they think rules are an enemy to them. They think rules are judgmental. They feel rules is a self-indictment towards them, and woe is me. So do you turn these kids out in the classroom, on the church, or in your home? Because some people are watching us today. I'm just going to tell you, every child that rebelled in my house, I put out. I put Amani out, Amir out when he was 8, and Amani, and they walked down the street with their luggage, and the whole family was mad at me. I put them out. I don't think a dysfunctional teenager should be able to rule and take over your house. If they're over 18, a dysfunctional child has nothing to say or do in my house but get another house. So how important it is for women who are single, because I ain't never been a woman, don't want to be, don't desire to be, but how important it is for the women to understand that dealing with these children in their home by themselves that are dysfunctional, rebellious, they didn't pray, they didn't eat a Messiah, they didn't went to Brian Carr's meeting, they didn't went to Amir May's meeting, they didn't lay before the altar, they didn't spit up, they didn't turn bubblegum, chew it, they didn't did all that, and the child's still rebellious. When do you say enough is enough? I'm not tolerating this no more in my classroom, in my school, or in my church.
Again, and it's just like the classroom, and I would say the same thing, just like in the classroom, you do not change your expectations or your rules. If you said that you are not smoking weed in my house, it is the same thing. You are not smoking weed in my house. It's not, okay, you did it today, you can get a pass. No, the rules are you're not smoking, you have to stick to it. Same thing as it relates to spirituality. If you have someone in the house who feel like what you're saying is harmful to them, or it's judgmental, or it's personal, or, you don't bend and change the rules because they particularly think that it's towards them. You stick to the rules and expectations that have been set. You don't falter. You don't waver them. It is what it is. They're either going to line up or they're going to leave. Prayerfully, they will not leave. But you can only do so much.
So do you ever come to the realization, we've had this as parents, as spiritual parents, Have you ever do you come to the realization, oh, my time is up. Do you come to the realization that I've gone farther than I can go? It's now time for me to get some third party help with my child. If he can't go with his mama, grandmother's, can't go to big auntie, he's got to leave here.
Absolutely. And then I also say I'll say it on the flip end, it's the same thing that applies in the church. But I want to say this, Bishop, is a lot of times, and I'm going out here on a limb, a lot of pastors think that people belong to them. So they are responsible for the change in their lives. And that's not accurate, because we are to gear them back to God. God is the one that actually make the changes. We don't make it. We make suggestions, but we don't make the changes. So we can't own them and say, you better do this, you got to do this. No, these are my suggestions and how your life can be changed and transformed. If you take it, great. If you use it, wonderful. If you don't, no problem. So I just want to give that flip side of that, Bishop.
So, so you're saying it is not the pastor's job to fix my life.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying.
As pastors, we often make the mistake that we try to fix, of owning that. I try to fix life, and I always end up hurt or just mad, or people just walk over. But I believe that, and
you're trying to do something that God has not ordained for you to do, or maybe that's not your assignment.
So you got to know when to hold them
and know when to fold them.
Girl, you're a bad girl. That's wisdom. I'm telling you, that's so powerful. Thank you, Pastor King, for being my guest. I hope I paid you. If you didn't get paid, check.
I didn't get paid, Bishop.
Check your the other account with the light looks like with my name on it. Then I treat you lunch.
All right.
In Jesus' name.
Love
I love you all. God bless you all. So that was Pastor King. He was our guest today on Straight Talk. Truly was a blessing. And if you have any questions, inbox us. We would literally take your questions as it relates to this topic. Email me, afwc.charlotte@gmail.com or miramadsenior@gmail.com. Call us and just on here, inbox us, and we'll get with you. We hope we said something to bless your life, to grace your life. Usually you would have to pay for that, but it's free. We didn't ask you all for anything. We don't even want to offer today because people think that's about, we don't want to glorify and take away from the knowledge that we shared with you today and take it away from the offering. So thank you all. I love you. I want to encourage you, man. I father children outside of my marriage. I father children with my marriage. We've been step parents, and God brought us all together because I never neglected my responsibility. I'll always acknowledge it to God. I repented, and that's all that mattered. And God brought my family together. I'm not a perfect parent. I will tell you all, you can't buy your child. Every child is going to want to know what's really the truth about their parent. Every child is going to challenge you about don't demonize your parent. Don't demonize that parent to your child. Don't let him hear him talk about you. Let him find out for him a serve. No matter how much he might cry or get hurt, let him find out. The prodigal son would have never woke up and went back home if he didn't know how good he had it. Sometimes some people got to leave in order to understand how good they really have it. So love y'all. You be encouraged. And I'm telling you, it's not your fault. All right, parents, it's not your fault. God loves you, so do I. And God bless.